I think I found the most bizarre and artistic video game trailer there ever was and ever will be. Take a look at this and try to guess what type of game it is. Okay, so we've got SWAT teams, guns, tasers, human trafficking, sex clubs, plus a dark and moody atmosphere. Sounds like the perfect recipe for a Nicholas Winding Refn movie. Is this the video game sequel to Only God Forgives? No, it isn't, thankfully. This is a game that's just been announced by a newly formed studio, Void Interactive, called Ready or Not. I'm not sold on the name, to be honest with you. Reminds me of a Fuji song from the 90s, but we'll let it slide. Ready or Not is a tactical first-person shooter where you take control of an elite SWAT team. Sounds pretty familiar so far, video game territory. There will be multiplayer, of course, up to 8-player co-op and a single-player mode as well. The game itself apparently has been in development since June 2016, and the first trailer of the game released a couple of days ago. No actual gameplay yet, although I think this is all in-engine as it's on Unreal Engine 4 and it can actually look that good. And there are a couple of first-person snippets in that trailer, so we have to have a sense of caution with what we see and read until we see that juicy, uncut gameplay. Remember the Rainbow Six Patriots trailer? The footage on the bridge? Well, that game eventually turned into something vastly different. Rainbow Six Siege, of course. So until we see actual gameplay, it's a bit hard to get too excited, but there are a ton of gameplay details on the game's website right now. And whilst we're on the subject of Rainbow Six, Siege is a very different game from how the original Rainbow Six games used to be. And that's no surprise, games change, developers change, everything moves on. But when the first Rainbow Six released, it was, I'd say, a die-hard tactical shooter, and it even had a pre-game planning stage to boot. And I remember playing loads of this when I was like 12, 13, and you could plan an entire level out if you wanted to. And you could actually have all of the commands set for your AI squad mates, issuing them orders, like opening doors, throwing flashbangs in, for every single door, every movement, every choke point in the game, and it was something unique, and I definitely have fond memories of it. Back then, mind you, single player was a lot easier to pull off than multiplayer, but over the years I think the core audience of the Rainbow Six franchise has changed, and it's become a much more accessible shooter. And that's not a criticism, but more of an observation. Siege has the added benefit of destruction now as well, and that changes up the gameplay quite a bit, but it's still very fast paced and often less about tactics and more about fast peaking these days, at least from my experience. On the positive side though, this new game, Ready or Not, looks like it's attempting to bring back some of that super hardcore Rainbow Six magic. As well as Rainbow Six, there may be some of you guys watching this right now, the older guys perhaps, that remember a video game series called SWAT. And this was kind of around like the end of the 90s, early 2000s. And SWAT 3 and SWAT 4 were games that I played, and they were excellent, and they were kind of similar to the Rainbow Six series in a lot of ways, where you would play as a SWAT officer with a team and you would embark on tactical CQB missions. You could be sneaky and lockpick, arrest people, or you could go loud and dynamic with rams, grenades, and plenty of loud weapons. It was kind of this really focused tactical experience. Again, ready or not, I have a feeling that the developers were big fans of that series too, based off the footage and gameplay mechanics that we've heard about this new game so far. So I'm sure that if you were more into SWAT back in the day than Rainbow Six, this game should definitely be on your radar. Now, there's a list on the website of what the devs describe as current features in the game, and it's a pretty impressive one if they manage to pull it all off. First off, an incremental lean system. You will have a classic lean system like you see in other games nowadays, so Q and E on PC for instance for a quick lean left and right. Beyond that, you can then incrementally lean in each direction a bit at a time. It sounds fantastic, but it really depends on how easily it's controlled, because if it's not handled well then it could be a bit too finicky. Not used that word in a while perhaps. Ever? We'll go with it, finicky, I like it. Also in the game is an incremental door system. So in Ready or Not, you may come across many different types of doors, sliding, swinging, revolving, and you can manipulate them with the mouse wheel. So it's not simply open and closed, and you can control how fast that you're opening them. Again, this is meant to make situations more tactical, where you're properly scoping out areas and taking your time. And yes, this system harks back to a Rainbow Six game. If my memory serves me correctly, Raven Shield introduced this system first, and with it you could approach a door and open it fully if you wanted to in one big swing, or instead you could actually scroll your mouse wheel and open it incrementally. So what you would do is open a door just a crack and cover off that kind of very small angle, and then that gave you a couple of options. Do you want to throw a flashbang through that opening and clear the room? Do you want to open it a bit more at a time and just cover off different angles one by one? Or do you want to frag it? And having those options was just so damn cool. Now what's interesting is that they also talked about modular player speed control, again with the mouse wheel, which is a bit crazy. I have seen that in another game recently. I think it's Escape from Tarkov that uses that kind of system, and they say that it allows for precise movement in close quarters to fully control the player's movement speed. So obviously if you're going a bit slower, you're probably going to be more accurate, and you're definitely going to be making less sound. As well as all of this, the game will have a simulated third-person inventory. What does that mean exactly? Well, let's say that a SWAT officer would carry their magazines in pouches by their chest. If that was the case, then that's exactly where they would reach for them in the game. If a stun grenade, for instance, is on your right hip, then that's where it's going to be seen visually, and that's where the character is going to reach for it when you select it. It's a level of detail that we aren't really used to at the moment. Pouches opening and closing as the player grabs a magazine to reload. This level of detail is also seen in the weapons and the environments, which are designed to look as believable as possible. But of course, making a game exactly like real life or mimicking real life isn't always fun, and in terms of gameplay, I think fun should always take precedent, and I don't want to judge a system like that already before I've played with it, but games are games after all, and if the mechanics in them remove them from being fun anymore, then I think that's a problem. But like I said, this is up in the air, and I think it's something that's never really been done before in this detail, so very interesting to see how it pans out. Now, talking of the player, armor is calculated based on the coverage of armor on the player. So if you've got body armor on your upper half, then that's where the armor will actually do its job. As well as that, the game has a damage system that will actually affect how the player moves. Get shot in the legs and you'll move slower, be shot in the arms, and it could decrease your accuracy or your draw times. Again, it sounds great in theory because it's kind of mimicking real life, but could this end up being a bit annoying? Too much perhaps? We'll have to see. and the bullets that you fire from weapons will have a realistic drag, range and velocity. Calibers and ammo types will affect how far and how well a projectile will penetrate a surface. Bullet ricochets and bullet deflection is also a thing in this game. Madly, you can also get less than lethal solutions as well, so stuff like pepper guns, tasers, even beanbag shotguns, perhaps for hostage modes. Best be careful. Currently there are over 30 items in total, and they will expand on this as the game progresses. Weapons, grenades, deployable items, all of them will have their place with the aim of not having overlapping items that do the same job. The main thing that probably sets this game apart from something like Rainbow Six is the pre-game tactical planning that we talked about earlier. Just like in old Rainbow Six games, every mission in Ready or Not will begin with a planning stage that not only has a tactical analysis, but also allows teams to perform certain actions that could impact the game, such as shutting off power grids or blockading entrances, or even spawning in unique items like ballistic shields, heavy rams and telescopic ladders. There is a real thought process here on how you should plan and execute at the start of a game. Ready or Not plans to support squad competitive play as well as co-op, and so far I have to say I'm intrigued by their take on the game as well as the art style, but the question is, can they pull it off and ball it up into a successful fun package? It's running on Unreal Engine 4 right now, and they seem to be well on their way to a solid game, but right now it all looks great on paper, but until we see some actual real uncut gameplay, I think it's impossible to know if it's going to live up to its promise. So there we go, that's an early look at Ready or Not. I hope you enjoyed this kind of breakdown and analysis of all the details that we have so far. When I saw this trailer, it definitely piqued my interest and I had to look into it and kind of find out what it was all about. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.